issues that stand out to you, kind of in the Baltimore area since you've all moved down here to go to school?
I've noticed that there's a lot of air pollution. All of the motor transportation, cars, buses. It just seems like people aren't doing enough in the community to maybe limit the CO2 emissions and that kind of thing. I think maybe take bikes or walk to class instead of taking your car. Up a block or two. I just think it's very inefficient and it's hurting the environment.
Right.
Yeah, it's really just the little things you can do that can really help. Because I've noticed there's a lot of trash around. I mean, if everybody can do their part in general, I think the community overall will really improve.
I've also noticed that, going back over to Jeremy's point, but taking a bike or an alternative form of transportation, because of the lack of subway systems in Baltimore, I think that it's important people find an alternative way to get around, whether it's carpooling or walking or taking a bike or just in the short distance your short distance travels, especially down in Baltimore. You get really great weather in the fall, and it's really not a big deal to have to walk 20-25 minutes to do what you got to do. So I think air pollution is definitely a big issue. It needs to be addressed before it gets out of hand.
Okay, so I guess going off of that at Loyola, do you think it would help with, I guess, like the fuel emissions in this example, if maybe the shuttles that we had, maybe cutting down on those, or like maybe using some different form of transportation with that? Like, do you think that would help on campus?
In my opinion, I think the shuttle service is good. Like the idea of it, but I don't think it's used enough. I mean, every time I've ever gotten on the shuttle, it's like me and maybe a couple other people. So, I mean, those running all day to shuttle a few people doesn't make sense. But if they were to somehow figure out a way to have maybe it's reroute the system or to have other options of places to go where maybe you could get that carpool aspect involved with with the service. Otherwise, people are just going to continue to take their vehicles, individually, and obviously that's not good. Having people take their own cars instead of having that carpool option. So, not really sure of any specific ideas that could maybe make that more that the shuttle service more popular, but I definitely think the idea of the shuttle service is a good idea as far as limiting emissions. That the shuttle service more popular, but I definitely think the idea of the shuttle service is a good idea as far as limiting emissions with the carpool method. But I'm not sure on that stuff.
Yeah, one idea could be maybe like boosted technology, maybe creating like an app or something that would make it possible like requests for a shuttle instead of just having set times to go. That way, and maybe invest in other forms of transportation. Maybe like Prius. Priuses are cool.
I was gonna say maybe
like you request a Prius. That way, nobody's ever waiting. Plus, you don't just get 3 people on a shuttle. It's just guzzling gas all the time.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe find some sort of a instead of using like a bus, as Ethan had referred to, maybe some other kind of green
like an electric.
Yeah, green friendly electric. I don't know if there's like electric like buses or shuttles, but like something that maybe is rechargeable.
You don't even
need electric outlet. Maybe like obviously like Teslas and that kind of transportation is a little expensive,
pricey.
But yeah, I guess you're putting a Prius or maybe like a five seated, fully or partially electronically powered vehicle could definitely help the situation.
Yeah, just any way to make it more efficient.
Right.
Okay. And you guys are student athletes here, so do you think it would be beneficial at all for Loyola Athletics for any team to really get into like doing like a community service thing, like a Project Clean Stream? Like, do you think that would be beneficial where you essentially just go to whatever location they can find and help just clean up the streams like around it, in it, any of that kind of stuff?
Well, definitely, I think anything you can do to the environment positively will obviously help. But cleaning out the streams is important because obviously that water eventually leads to bigger and bigger bodies of water, and we need to keep those clean, preserve drinking water. I think really in the next 30 to 50 years, it's going to become a bigger and bigger issue. Just pollution in general, and more population's growing, so I think doing what we can to help the long-term issue of pollution is great.
All right, thank you guys. Just talk about like any glaring environmental justice issues you see like now versus like when you first got here. And we live off campus on York Road, so maybe what the difference is between being on York Road and on campus, and just how you'd like to see Loyola get involved.
Yeah. Sure. It's funny that you actually bring up this topic, Bennett. I'm actually in a human health and the environment class this semester. So we talk about a lot of these different types of environmental justice issues. One of the things that I have seen firsthand in Baltimore, especially over the past couple of years, is how the environment affects the children of Baltimore City, more specifically the children of lower income families. And if you look at the rates of asthma in these kids, it's like a skyrocket, and it's significantly higher than the national average rate for asthma. So, you ask yourself, what is it about Baltimore that is creating this problem of increased asthma rates? And so, one of the things we look at is the levels of different air pollutants, in Baltimore City with all the industry and, in a big city where you have all the transportation and whatnot. So, you look at stuff like ozone, you look at particulate matter, you look at sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide, all the stuff that really has an effect on the lungs. And the thing that's particularly interesting to me is how it affects children as opposed to adults. Children, what we always say in our classes, children are not just little adults. Like they're totally different developmentally, physiologically, just different. So children's lungs are much more prone, right, vulnerable to these air pollutants, say, than an adult's lung would be. So that's why these asthma rates are sky high in a city like Baltimore.
So that kind of sounds like an issue that's going on in downtown. You're familiar with like the giant
children, what we always say in our classes, children are not just little adults. Like they're totally different developmentally, physiologically, just different. So children's lungs are much more prone, right, vulnerable to these air pollutants, say, than an adult's lung would be. So that's why these asthma rates are sky high in a city like Baltimore.
So that kind of sounds like an issue that's going on in downtown. You're familiar with like the giant, cylindrical building. It says Baltimore on the side, coming off of 95.
Yeah.
It's like they burn trash there.
Incinerator.
Yeah, the incinerator. So all that air, especially the people in like those areas, are very much affected by it.
For sure. And the other thing about pollution is air pollution doesn't really know city boundaries, right? Like when something gets into the air, it travels. Based on wind patterns and whatnot, it travels. So just because that obviously the people around that plant are going to be severely affected, but those pollutants can travel miles away from that site.
So how would you like to see Loyola kind of get involved? Any ideas, really?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with, Loyola is a university, so it starts with the education piece, which is huge. I mean, if people don't know what we're talking about, they're not going to be motivated to work against it, right? So, you got to get people excited about it, motivated, and it starts with education, and that's what we talk about a lot about in our class is, how do we take these scientific ideas and terms and put them into more layman's terms and put them into words that the public can really digest and understand. So I think that's crucial in a city like Baltimore, where a lot of people may not be science minded, but they can still sort of identify with these issues and rally together and make a change.